The feds seized all of the footage at the hospital that Charlie was brought to at Timpanogos. That doesn't make sense to me. Nothing makes sense to me in this whole story. So this is just kind of the icing on the top here. Not even the icing on the top. But why would they move to seize that footage? How is that going to help their investigation? What's happening inside of Timpanogos? How is that going to help their investigation, their immediate boots on the ground investigation into who shot Charlie Kirk? They're on a manhunt. Why are they going, okay, let's at first grab the footage at Timpanogos? Does that make sense?
So I've got a lot to say about that, but I just did an entire episode dunking on Ben Shapiro. So I decided to bring in reinforcements. I got the homie, Legendary Energy, Mr. An0maly. What's cracking, dude?
How are you doing? I wasn't told that I was reinforcements to attack Ben Shapiro because I'm a Shapiro fan, or I don't know what we call ourselves these days. But
no, you're an uwu Shapiro.
I'm in the dark about this, but I'm always in the dark when it comes to Clint's show because anything's game. So whatever he wants to talk about, I'm here to help my buddy out.
I appreciate that.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Okay? I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up, but the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. The history of America is you go to a place where there is opportunity. And if the opportunities are limited here and they're not changing, then you really should try to think about other places where you have better opportunities.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you were saying before we started that that's a real winning message. Go ahead and elaborate a little bit.
Dude, it's been like listening to Trump before I get into Shapiro. It's been really bothering me because Trump's made like hundreds of millions of dollars on these crypto schemes this year. He's got like Bill Gates in the White House. He's building a ballroom. I don't care. I mean, the Bill Gates thing, obviously, I do care, and the Pfizer deal he's cutting. But it's like then he just sits there and says there is no affordability issue. You are a billionaire. The country, like even for me, I think I'm doing pretty well, I guess, compared to average, but everything's going up. The cost of everything's going up. The quality of it, nothing is getting better. Like it's not like the economy's booming for me or anybody, any normal person. So him to say there is no affordability issue.
The economy was listed as a top concern. I know you know this for voters. Is this a voter perception issue of the economy, or is there more that needs to be done by Republicans on Capitol Hill or done in terms of policy?
More than anything else, it's a con job by the Democrats. They're saying, they just have to say, they put out something, say today costs are up. They feed it to the anchors of ABC, CBS, and NBC, and a lot of other, and CNN, and et cetera. Are you ready? Costs are way down.
And then you got Ben Shapiro tag teaming and coming in and being like, if there is an affordability issue, why don't you just leave and go somewhere else? Like, that's what we've had to do. Yeah, I mean, my family came from Poland. My family came from Italy to America. I guess I could flee on a boat again, but that's kind of not the American dream. So what crazy bad messaging from Shapiro and Trump to tag team with there is no affordability issue. Everything's up. You're just delusional if you think otherwise. And then if somehow you are right and things are hard for you, then Ben comes in and says, just, move somewhere else. Well, it's crazy message.
Well, and then also just consider that the whole point of America, the thing that made America special was that we all got up and we left. We left our home countries to come here because this was the land of opportunity. And now there are huge swaths of America in which Ben Shapiro just says, well, those aren't the land of opportunity. You got to get out of there. Look, it may actually even be practical advice. Like I think that that's probably true. So many of the people I grew up with, because I grew up in San Diego, and because of the inflationary environment and the real estate bubble, almost everybody I know has moved out of San Diego now because it's just so unaffordable, including myself. That's not why I moved out, but a lot of people did. They moved to Denver, Arizona, or whatever. But the problem with this messaging is twofold. Obviously, it's not problem solving at all. It's not saying like we're actually going to help you with this or we're going to stop this process, but it's also not even from a conservative standpoint, which is what Ben Shapiro has been on a warpath over the past week now, trying to reclaim his title as top conservative commentator. He doesn't even mention the fact that the whole reason that we move out of our hometowns is because of the inflation, because housing continues to skyrocket, and it makes it so that the children of our parents, we have to leave them. And that is not a natural phenomenon. That is a phenomenon of fiat and central banking. And he doesn't even pretend to give any credence to that. He's just like, well, you got to get out of New York. You got to get out of LA or whatever. It's terrible messaging. And then on top of that, they're not delivering on any of their other promises. So economically, they're not delivering. And then they're not delivering on the justice side of things, prosecuting, indictments, anything. I mean, there's literally nothing. And then you have the Charlie Kirk cover up, which I think it is. It's just a losing message all the way around. But we haven't talked in a couple months. What's your take on the Kirk case? Have you looked into it at all?
Before I talk about that, just real quick, I want to say I like the way Marjorie Taylor Greene has been messaging, where it's like compassionate to the fact that healthcare sucks and the country is worse. Like when you talk to boomers and they're like, oh, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Yeah, I agree. I'm not a pussy. I'm not like rolling over or anything. But when you could make $50,000 a year, but like the average house was like $10,000 versus if now you're making $80,000 a year and the average house is like $300K, like we're getting screwed in 1,000 ways. So there's a way to be tough but compassionate. I think Marjorie's doing a good job of that, but this like, oh, nothing's wrong. There is no affordability issue. And if there is, just get out. It's just super douchey, not helpful. And like you said, not addressing the root issues. With the Kirk stuff, yeah, I've definitely been paying attention, quietly and just kind of observing. Cause I think my take on it is this, like, I haven't seen all of Candace's shows, but Candace with the Zionists in this case is kind of like Trump with the left. Like there's a lot of things Trump is doing wrong, in my opinion. And this is not a knock at Candace. I'll get into it in a second, sure. But like, I'm not saying Trump's a perfect person. Actually, he really annoys me, like way more than Candace annoys me. But he's so much better than the left. It doesn't matter because the left is the boy who cried wolf. The left is such clowns. So Trump just is still better than the left, even though he's doing stuff. With Candace, she's literally the only one investigating. I'm not trying to compare her in like a negative way to Trump, but even if she makes some mistakes or even if she does something that people don't like, it's like she's still so much more honest than the Zionists and the people that are trying to like say that she's saying something else or say that she's saying this. And my thought is this, like, I can only speak for myself, but I'm not like fully blown away by the evidence and what they've come up with. And I'm willing to be patient and listen. But if you want people to not listen to Candace every day and not believe what she's saying, then you have to do better investigation yourself, exactly. Or at least provide some sort of alternative. And not only are they not providing an alternative, but like the bullet, like I'll ask any of my friends who really like hunt professionally and stuff, and I'll ask them about that. Like literally not a single one believes it. They think it's ridiculous. And these are like normal people that don't even pay attention to politics. So you're asking me to just believe what you're saying, and like the people are just acting so odd where like they'll come out and be like, if you don't believe the official narrative, that means you're blaming me. I'm like, who are you? I don't even know who you are. Like, you think you're way more important than you are, like acting like I think you did it when I didn't even know you were affiliated with Charlie. So it's like the side against Candace, I'm only framing it that way because she seems to be the lead investigator, like citizen journalist. The alternative to her are providing nothing and they're just spiraling. So it's like, I think she's doing some things I wouldn't do. And, she's definitely, I don't know what her accuracy rating is so far, but she's uncovered more than anyone else. The text messages, just the way people are acting. So for sure, it's just another one of those things where, yeah, it's like, no matter what they say about her, no matter how mad they get, they're providing literally nothing. So I would love to see like a TPUSA investigation, but maybe they're too close to it that they're working with the feds and they can't do that. I don't really know, but that's just my citizen take is like, yeah, the Zionists are spiraling like always and making less sense than the people they hate, in my view.
Yeah, dude. Well, in terms of high profile, I agree that, Candace is really the only one of his friends that's actually lifting a finger to try and figure out what the fuck happened. But I do have this clip from Benny Johnson, which was the day after the attack, and I think this is a fascinating find.
Yes, there is reason for people to believe that this is a professional hit job. I want to begin by saying that I'm very, very close with Charlie and his team, and here's what I wish to relay to you from them. That there is some considerable evidence that there were state actors involved here. That's it. I don't want to go any further than that. I can't go any further than that. That is what I've been told. It is not like this is exclusive to me necessarily. John Solomon said it last night on Sean Hannity's show.
All right. So
Yeah.
this is, Mr. Benny Johnson, who's basically just a pure water carrier for MAGA Inc. He doesn't actually do any serious work, as best I can tell. But sorry to take a shot at the guy, but I'm just being honest. Like, that's my opinion of him. But he says that he's very close with the TPUSA people, and he has reason to believe there is considerable evidence that there are state actors involved. And then he goes radio silent for the next 6 weeks and really doesn't talk about it at all. I just think that when you tie into the fact that Candace Owens was right, that the text messages were real, confirmed by Andrew Colvett and the TPUSA organization, we know for a fact that Charlie was saying he's getting immense pressure from Zionist donors and that they're living up to all the stereotypes and he has to abandon the pro-Israel cause. He has no choice but to abandon the pro-Israel cause. And then 48 hours later, he catches a bullet. And it's like, it makes me wonder if it wasn't Colvett that was conveying this to Benny Johnson, saying that he thinks that. And now, Colvett and company goes around. He's the PR rep for TPUSA. They just go around basically acting as if it was Tyler Robinson, and there's no reason to doubt anything else. And I don't know. It all rubs me the wrong way. It makes me, especially after the Butler attack on Trump and the lack of any due diligence in getting a motive for that. I mean, think about how crazy it is. Like, the president had his head grazed by a gun or by a bullet, and we've just all moved on. Like, it never even happened. And now it feels like the same thing is happening here. And I've repeated this so many times, I'm hesitant to say it again, but I just don't want to live in a country like that. I don't want to live in a country where people can get fucking murdered in front of us in 4K, and we're all like, well, we'll just trust whatever the FBI says, even though we all know that the FBI is a lying organization through and through. I'll just be straight with you. I'm like 60-40 that it is not Tyler Robinson that fired that shot. So that's where I'm at with it.
I would say this, like, for yourself, I mean, you're a citizen, you do your independent journalism, and you're not really like close to that situation. So you could say and think whatever you want, pretty much. Same with Candace. Right. With the Turning Point people, and this is not justifying what they're saying or not saying, because their life is their life. They know what they know. But they're almost probably connected to the investigation because they're literally part of his organization. So I'm just guessing and speculating, but I'm sure they're in heavy communication with the feds, and they're probably relaying the message, like, don't talk too much because we're going to get this in court. Like, it's not for you to, versus like you or Candace, where you're not really like, you weren't working with Turning Point, et cetera. Sure. So you're just kind of like seeing it from the outside, saying and doing whatever you feel is right. They're like on the inside of it. So I don't know whatever Benny said, I'm sure someone told him to not say it or to not talk about it right now, and they'll cover it in court or whatever. But I would say this, for like everyone's going to put their own bias on what Charlie, like what could have happened to Charlie. So like, I find a lot of people that get harassed by left wingers like Matt Walsh and stuff, like his whole life is getting death threats by leftists. So he looks at it and he says, I definitely believe them because I've seen it. You know what I'm saying? I see how evil the left is. Someone like myself,
I think, is extreme, so he's going to assume that the narrative's true.
Right, and then people who are more critical of Zionism and seeing what they're doing overseas, et cetera, will also have that. Will have that bias on the same way, and be more likely to want to believe that is true. And I think for me, like just trying to be honest about it all and navigate it, I think Charlie is like this. He's this interesting character where, like, if you look at who he is, he's Charlie Kirk. The state actor thing that Benny was talking about, I don't know what state he was talking about, or I'm sure, who knows? I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but it's like Charlie was probably going to be a president one day. I would say, like, establishment-wise and connection-wise, he's probably like one of the most high-profile public citizens outside, like Elon Musk and someone like that. Like, Charlie wasn't just a random guy. Like, he probably was going to be president. He definitely was going to be, if he ever ran for office, he was going to win and be the most popular Republican. He was a superstar, whether you liked him or not. So it's like, you have this guy who is for sure a target to a lot of different people, because one way or another, he's going to rise to power. He's already one of the most powerful Republicans as far as like actual power and systemic power, not just podcasting. He's got all these organizations.
For sure.
So it's not out of the realm for anybody to speculate what the heck's going on, because he for them to just try to wrap it up and be like, no, it was just this. It could have been, absolutely, because he was hated by the left. They did make a, South Park character of him. He's known among leftists. But this is like the fascinating part about his final couple months, which I found out afterwards, and some of the stuff you're talking about. I didn't realize he was being called Hamas and an anti-Semite and the enemy. And I'm not saying that necessarily means anything, but similar to how Ted Cruz says, if they call you a Nazi, it means they want to kill you. Well, that's kind of Zionists calling you Hamas as well. Once they call you Hamas, they kill Hamas. So they basically want to put a target on you. Like that, that's what I see that when they say that to Megyn Kelly. Like, what else? What do you do to journalists in that country? How many have died that you've called them that? So it's like, it's not just a nothing label when you have people that use that label to justify that. So now you have Charlie who, like, it's almost like the perfect mystery. And I'm not trying to like glorify it or anything, but it's like he was hated by the left. He was hated by the Democrats. He was telling Trump that he didn't want to start the war in Iran. So now he's trying to meddle in the military industrial complex and the plot that they've had for 20 years. Bingo. They know that he's a great ally of Israel and he's a super Zionist, but at the same time, he's getting upset that they won't let him be himself. And, they want him to be like 100% on their side, but he's only like 95% on their side. So it kind of creates like this perfect mystery where everyone's putting their bias on it. If you don't like Zionists, you're thinking that. Yeah. If you don't like leftists, you're thinking that. And Charlie, like, there almost was nobody like Charlie, where he literally was in the middle of all of those worlds. And it creates like the perfect mystery because, it's like anti-Zionists hated Charlie and thought he was too Zionist. Zionists hated Charlie. They thought he wasn't Zionist enough. Left-wingers thought he was too far right. Far-right people think he's too far left. Like, Charlie was like, it's actually like, he's a fascinating person where it's like there's no one else like him that can almost be considered everything at once. So then when you're going to motives and stuff, obviously you could check text messages and, this and that. But it's like you could almost piece the puzzle together with your own bias in any of the categories, at all.
I completely agree.
What I would say is like I said, where it's like, they say Clint's asking too many questions or assuming too much or Candace is doing too much. When I look at that, but then I look at the other side, it's like they're just acting really suspicious. And I'm not saying they're doing it, but just saying like, don't talk about it, don't think about it. Dude, like, just like you said, the same thing when it happened to Trump, Trump's going to be president. So if someone actually successfully took out Trump, they're altering the course of U.S. history. And I believe they altered the course of U.S. history by killing Charlie. So to me, it's not like a small mystery. It's like, yeah, it could have been some random skinny shitlib, of course. But it also could have been 20 different governments. It could have been 50 different political organizations. I'm not saying it is, but like the lack of curiosity, I think, from the Zionist side is rubbing a lot of people the wrong way and just making like, and like the way they're tweeting where every day they're like, they did this and he was a furry. It's like, I don't know. We've lived through too many psyops. We've lived through even the one guy that almost killed Trump. Like the first one, they barely said anything about him. The second one, he's got videos of Newsweek interviews of him in Ukraine recruiting former Taliban members to Ukraine. What the frick is that? You know what I'm saying? Like how connected was that guy? Was he paid by a foreign government? Like, or is he just some lone crazy wolf? It's hard for people to believe that. So it's like, I'm just being patient and I'm being quiet because I see everybody acting a little ridiculous. But at the same time, like I said, if you really think about it, only Charlie could create this sort of chaos because like Zionists thought he wasn't Zionist enough, which was crazy because he was like an ultra Zionist. But then anti-Zionists thought he was doing too much. And it felt like he was at a turning point where I was at turning point this year. Yeah. Tucker's on stage talking about Epstein in Israel and everybody's way cooler to me. And they used to not want me there because I would criticize the Israel speech laws and stuff. And like, for sure he was changing. For sure they were mad that he was platforming Tucker. So it's like so frustrating because everyone wants to put words in Charlie's mouth. And he was definitely at a point where like only time would have told which direction he was going. And obviously we have hints and stuff, but it's like, what a crazy time for him to get taken out, which is leading to all of this suspicion. Well, and it's like understandable. Yeah. It's understandable in my opinion.
Yeah, totally. And it's right at the inflection point. Like it's right at the point where, 48 hours prior, he says, I have no choice but to abandon the pro-Israel cause. And it's like, that's the biggest inflection point in Charlie Kirk's life other than when that bullet lands. I mean, that is it right there, especially if he meant it. Which I think he meant it because on that group chat, it's important to remember, he's got his pastor, he's got his rabbi, and he's got Josh Hammer all on there. which I think, after doing all the research I've done, I'm almost 90% convinced that Josh Hammer's just a handler. Like, I don't think he's a real, political commentator. I think he's just an operative. But anyway, setting that aside, it's just like, well, I did want to ask you one follow-up question. Were you at both days of TPUSA? Did you get to watch Dave Smith and Josh Hammer debate?
I didn't. Was that Saturday? I had a UFC event to go to, so I was there Friday. I saw Tucker speak a little bit, but mostly I was doing interviews and kind of like networking and stuff. Sure. I wasn't watching that much.
The reason I wanted to ask is because, based off of me watching it on YouTube, it sounded as if it was pretty much like majority of the room was in favor of Dave Smith over Josh Hammer. Is that the vibe you got just in the conversations you were having with people at the event, that like this, I don't even know if it's anti-Zionist, but like Israel skeptical? Is that more the mood of these events?
Yeah. Let me preface it, because I went 3 or 4 years earlier, and I'm not gonna tell it too long. I'll make it as short as possible. But I knew somebody at Turning Point, and I was like, hey, I would like to go as a journalist, whatever, to network, whatever. And they said, sure, dude, we'd love to give you a pass. And then, they called me back and they said, hey, actually, we got to revoke the pass. You can't come. This was like 2021 or something. I was like, how come? And they go, well, we looked at your social media and we saw all these tweets. And I was like, which tweets? And it was basically me saying like Turning Point's a fraud because they won't talk about the Israel speech laws, stuff like that. So then I told whoever I was talking to on the phone, I don't know who it was, I said, listen, dude, I'll stand outside and protest, because you're going to let like Reuters and all these left-wing organizations in, and you're not going to let me in because I'm speaking the truth about speech laws. So then anyway, they called me back and, they said, well, we talked to like Jack Pasabic or somebody, and he said you were okay. And you know what I'm saying? That you can go. So they allowed me to go. But even then, it's like the vibe was like, it was cool. Like people in person were cool, but it was like I almost couldn't even get in. And then this year, not only was I welcome with open arms, but like TPUSA wanted to do an interview with me. They were like, all right, we're doing an interview with Charlie, then Benny. We're going to squeeze you in the middle. And I felt very honored. I was like, dang, you guys like me enough to not only not kick me out this time, but like squeeze me in an interview between Benny and Charlie. Everybody I was talking to, like the conversation. Yeah, Myron Gaines was there doing interviews. Like,
oh, they had Myron there? All right, that's something.
Or Myron brought himself. I don't know if they invited him or not, but he was there. And then the one guy I was interviewing was like complimenting Fuentes and stuff. Like it was just like a whole different vibe. And everybody I was talking to, like I watched Tucker on stage just talking about all this stuff, and like everybody's cheering. So yeah, no, like the vibe shift was crazy. And, for sure, as you know, just from afar, Charlie took so much backlash for just hosting Tucker and allowing him to say that stuff, where Charlie maybe wouldn't say it himself, but he's like, listen, I'm all for the big tent. We could have these people and these people. And he was really trying to bring everybody together and let it happen. But, he's working with people who have been trying to gatekeep that conversation for 6 years. So yeah, total vibe shift. Definitely seemed like it was dominating the discussion. And, I think, I'm sure from 4 or 5 years ago, like it went from a conversation that nobody really even understood to a conversation that's just like crazy dominant. And I think most people there agree with Tucker Carlson more than, the people that don't like him. And I'm sure they saw that. And look at all their tweets. They were like, the people were saying, Charlie's going to lead Turning Point to neo-Nazism. And like they were freaking out. So, total vibe shift.
I mean, and as you already detailed, like there are motives ever present with Charlie. It could have been 5 different groups easily, probably a dozen. But I will say, when it comes to murderous instincts, the pro-Israel side is certainly capable and well-equipped for assassinations that really, despite the fact that the left is radicalized and they're also very dangerous, and that's no doubt true. A relatively long distance sniper shot from a kid who's got no experience in terms of, he's got no criminal history, very bright kid, and he pulls this off, gets away, and then turns himself in allegedly. And it's like, it's a narrative that doesn't really jive with all of the actual evidence that we've been presented. That's not to say that it's not true. It could be, as I've said repeatedly. Like I said, I'm 60-40 against it, but that's still 40 that is for it. Like that's definitely a possibility. But I just want to, like, for the audience's sake, I just want to explain like how a Ben Shapiro or a Mark Levin sitting in that audience at TPUSA and having the shift that you just described, where it's like 50 or 60 or 70% of the group is with Tucker Carlson and against the Ben Shapiros of the world. And then you understand the funding side of TPUSA and how so much of the pro-Zionist money is what kept them afloat and got them off the ground. And they're like, we own you, so you can't do this. And then he does it anyways. And it's like, look, as you said, there's motives all the way around, but you got to admit, that's a pretty strong motive.
I mean, I could see it from both sides in the sense of like, could I see a leftist doing all this stuff? Absolutely. There are a lot of crazy ones. But even as you were saying with like the assassination thing, I think it's like 270 or over 200 journalists that were killed, and mainstream journalists, these type of journalists, like anybody that was in Palestine that wasn't, they just said everybody was Hamas and used it to execute them. So, I think that side needs, maybe they have no self-awareness, but it's like, when you are so open to killing journalists in other countries, same with even like Ukraine, I think they killed journalists against them in their country and started putting out these lists of Americans that they didn't like.
Yep.
It doesn't,
some of my friends,
it doesn't make people feel, it doesn't make people feel like you're not going to do something. So, I mean, like I said, I think if you are against what a lot of American Zionists or Israeli Zionists are doing, this provides a way that you can paint it in that direction, and just make assumptions perhaps and just connect certain dots. But like I'm not said, the timing of it is insane. Yeah. The timing of it is insane. The timing of the text, the people getting mad at him.
Well, and then keep in mind too, the trajectory of like what they're hemorrhaging worst is young conservatives, because the Democrats have already flipped on them. So like if you lose to, like specifically Charlie Kirk's audience, tens of millions of young right wingers, it's over. Like you will never be able to recover from that. So just the point that I'm making is that it's existential for the pro-Zionist cause. It's existential that they get Charlie Kirk on their page, back on the plantation. He's got to shut the fuck up. He's got to stop hosting Tucker Carlson. He's got to become a company man. And he just refused flatly. And I think that, look, I'm not trying to connect the dot to like get you to say, yes, they did it. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying that is a fucking crazy strong motive. And the moment that it happened was the perfect time for it to happen. That's all I'm saying.
Well, also, I would say we don't know what he would have done now. So it's like you could say, I think he was completely going to turn against them because of the timing of it. People could say that Charlie was definitely going to turn and definitely going to go against the Israel cause because he said that. But also, he could have just fallen back in line too. Like that letter he wrote to Netanyahu, it's like there was a lot of layers to it, but mostly it felt like, I'm Charlie Kirk. I love Israel. Your PR's not really good. This is better PR. He took a few little jabs, like this is how I would do it. This is how I would do it. Like very ballsy guy. But at the same time was like, my goal is to defend, Israel more effectively. Yep. So it's like, I'm not saying you're wrong for it, because at the end of the day, everyone's going to make their own thoughts. I have my own as well about the timing of it. But it's like, that's a tragedy layered in a bigger tragedy, is like him dying and his family losing him. But it's like the tragedy of like, what was Charlie going to do in 2 months? So one thing that I really think is disgusting that the other side is doing per se is, I made a whole video on it. I said, listen, because I'm not going as far as you're going, but at the same time, I'm only sticking to absolutely what I know and what I could prove. Sure. And I said, without like Charlie was not me. He wasn't you. The assumption is that he was turning into that or something, but because of what he said and what there's proof of. But at the same time, Charlie was like the ultimate schmoozer. He was like a politician. He loved to play all sides and keep everybody on base. But at the same time, one thing that I know for sure was Charlie Kirk wanted Tucker Carlson to speak at his events. So if you want Tucker not to speak at his events, you don't have to agree with Charlie posthumously or anything. But for me, just morally, let's say Brandon Tatum, I'm not like a big fan of his spiels recently. He was supposed to speak at Turning Point. So even though I don't agree with what Brandon's saying, I wouldn't say, let's take Brandon off of Turning Point. If Charlie booked him, let Charlie's legacy stand. Let his the people he wanted to speak. I'll never say that Charlie didn't want Brandon to speak because it's not true. He did. So it's the same with Tucker. So these people saying like Charlie didn't want to, like, we gotta change turning point like after he's dead, it really rubs people the wrong way because it's like Charlie made it very clear that he wanted Tucker Carlson to speak. He made it very clear he was being called an anti-Semite and morally blackmailed and pro-Hamas because he wouldn't back down for Megyn Kelly and Tucker. And if you're willing to lie about that and act like that doesn't happen, it's on video. You know what I'm saying? So that, I think all of these things are leading people to speculate more and people to assume more because it's like now, you know, regardless, I'll say this, regardless of what happened to Charlie or who did it, like, you know, we'll see what comes out in court, and I'm willing to be patient and take in all the evidence before I make any assumptions. But it's like there is now a fight for Turning Point in the future of Turning Point, and there was a fight beforehand before he died too. Yeah. And the people that are fighting to shift it in a direction, and the people that are fighting to shift it in a direction that Charlie clearly didn't want, they're not stopping just because he died. They're going just as hard, and it leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth. And it's like I said, it's just a time where you like. It's the craziest, most mysterious time when he died because like the only one that could have really told you what he was going to do is him, but he's not really there.
Oh,
so now it gets left to his wife or whoever takes it over. And it's like, it's like such a crazy, mysterious tragedy. Like the timing of it couldn't have been more ridiculous for a bunch of theories, a bunch of accusations, and then also a changing of the guards for the people that were trying to oust him anyway are now just like, all right, we got to like push it back in the right direction, you know, now that he's not here.
This is what makes me feel, you know, more confident in my hypothesis, not a thesis, a hypothesis, is that in the aftermath of his death, instead of honoring Charlie's legacy, which was open discussion, debate, no even like theoretical deplatforming, at least that rhetorically, that's what he would say, even though he wasn't very fond of Nick Fuentes. All of the pro-Zionist side, all of it is trying to, on his legacy, not do that. Do the exact opposite. They are trying to completely control and contain the narrative in a way that's so overt, especially to people like you and I, that it's impossible to miss. And I think that's how a lot of you know, us feel, but also a lot of, you know, Charlie Kirk's fans feel. And I just think it just adds to the suspicion.
I will say this too. Like Charlie wasn't you or me, and I'm not saying he had to be, but like Charlie was kind of a gatekeeper for Zionism, you know, like maybe he was changing it. Like there's evidence that he was. He purposely gatekept Nick Fuentes. Like as much as Charlie would say, I'm pro free speech for sure. But like he made it basically like his lifetime achievement to not let Nick Fuentes get a platform. And now that he's dead and Tucker platforms him, I'm not saying it's justified, but like Zionists are saying like Charlie wouldn't have wanted that. And honestly, they're probably right. Like, you know, even for myself, like I don't think Charlie ever did anything to me personally. I don't even know if he knew who I was. So I'm not blaming him. But the Shapiros, the Turning Point USA, I am confident that when I started speaking out in 2019 against the Israeli speech laws, that it was like a total blackout, a total blacklist. Like I don't know where it was coming from. I don't know who was orchestrating it. So I'm not going to make accusations. But I had friends at different media organizations. Yo, they're calling you far right. They're calling you an anti-Semite. I mean, they tried to ruin my career in 2019 just for being right about this topic. So, you know, I think a lot of people that are critical of Zionism and the speech laws and the foreign aid, you know, they want to make Charlie this pariah of like free speech and debate because he was a college campus debater. But this idea that he really wanted Fuentes to speak, like it's really just not accurate. He wanted Tucker to speak, but he was kind of a gatekeeper in his own right. And the Zionists are not necessarily wrong about that.
No, I totally agree, and that's a fair correction. But I will add that, you know, they're pushing that they want him to disconnect. They want TPUSA to disconnect from Tucker Carlson. I just want to be very clear that Charlie did not do the platforming contagion blacklisting thing because, and I know this for a fact because Dave Smith talked to Nick Fuentes now 3 times at length, and he was still having Dave, you know, come and debate specifically the Israel topic at that event that you were at. So I agree with you. Yes, he considered Fuentes to be beyond the pale, and there's a lot of other history, Groyper wars and all other shit that went into the bad blood that they had there. It wasn't purely ideological. They also had some, you know, personal reasons for not liking each other. But I just think it's I just look, man. I'll just be straight with you. I don't trust the FBI. I don't trust the media. I don't trust the Con Inc. talking heads at all. I think that like Posobiec strikes me as coming off like real fucking weird about this case. Same with Benny Johnson, and it's like every ounce of my instinctual being is just telling me something's off here. That it's not the story that we're being told. That doesn't mean that it's Mossad hitmen. It doesn't mean that. It just means that there is an aspect of a cover-up that's going on here. That's a fucking fact, and I know that provably because of the way that they buried those text messages and lied about them for weeks and called Candace a crazy person when she had the fucking receipts the entire time. Like, these people are pathological liars, and it's important that, like, even if they're not involved in his death, there is a story there that matters, and I feel like a lot of people are afraid to talk about it because they don't want to get accused of, like, tinfoil hat Alex Jonesing, Candace Owensing this thing. And I'm just trying to be very clear. I'm not going there. I'm not making an accusation that like I can't prove, but I am saying definitively they covered up some shit that mattered in the immediate aftermath of the assassination of their friend. They sat silent, or worse, many of them came out and they lied about the nature of those communications. And that's meaningful. That really is.
I mean, I think everybody's allowed to interpret it as they wish, and as far as like people being afraid to say certain stuff, I think my thoughts, especially if you're a podcaster or a news host or whatever, you're responsible for what you say and put out there. But people will, no matter how careful you are, I try to be as careful as possible. People will lie about you. They will falsely accuse you. They will connect you to people that you have nothing to do with. Like, that's just the name of the game. And it doesn't make it right. But at the end of the day, you're responsible for what you say. So for me personally, I'm seeing what everyone else is doing, but I took weeks to really make a video, and I said the battle over Charlie's legacy. And I said, everybody's trying to say Charlie was this, Charlie's that. Here's Charlie in his own words. And I pointed out that a lot of these Zionists saying the woke right's trying to hijack Charlie's legacy, they have tweets from a month or two ago calling Charlie Kirk woke right. So it's like, like I like to point exactly what I could prove. With that being said, like in my person, do I completely buy the narrative? 100%. I don't. The bullet narrative of like the moose bullet and the strong bones. Bro. I mean, that doesn't really make scientific sense to me. The text messages I read, like luckily my opinion doesn't really matter. It's not like I'm an investigator in the case or anything, but when I read those and it's like the way he was talking and stuff, to me, it looked like text to just put everything that they said in writing to then be like, look, there's the rag that we found with the DNA. Like it looked very, very fake to me. I'm not saying it was fake, but I don't believe it either. But and then
we still don't see that kid with the fucking rifle on that campus either. Like, I'm sorry. Like they say, oh, he dismantled it. He had it in his backpack. Bullshit. The barrel on that thing wouldn't have fit in that backpack. Then they say, oh, it's in his pants. Then you go, bullshit. You look at his pants. They're skin tight. There's no way you can fucking hide the rifle in your pants. Like they're just lying. So like, if you want to give me a narrative that makes sense, okay, this is a radical leftist who's banging some, furry at home, and he has this opportunity to take out Charlie. He knows at the event's the next day. He goes and he plants the gun the day before. Okay, like there's a narrative that I could buy. And then the gun is already on campus. He snuck it in the middle of the night, and it's on the rooftop, and he takes the shot, and he pieces out. Okay, maybe you could like paint a picture that actually seems viable, but like what they're telling us currently is not possible. It's just flatly not possible. And if you give me a narrative that's not possible, well, then I have no choice but to try and figure out a narrative that is. So I think that's the problem, is that like, and then instead of giving us something that's believable, they don't. And then everybody who goes, well, I don't believe you, they go, what's wrong with you? How could you not take us seriously? It's like, well, because you've lied. Like, clearly you've lied about some of this. It's just it's very tough.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm interested to see the court case.
Yeah, me too, man.
Right now, I'm not overwhelmed with the evidence. So I want to see if they have more evidence that they're not showing. Because, as you're kind of hinting to with the evidence right now, like I don't know that it's like an open shut case as much as they're trying to say. Like I said there's 3,000 people there filming from every single angle, and there's really no high quality footage of him, like you said, shooting, doing, and I believe that there probably would be, because everybody wasn't just facing Charlie. Some people were behind him. I find it really hard to believe that no 4K camera on an iPhone 16 or 17 caught better footage than just that security footage.
Crazy.
And even that security footage just isn't an open shut case. Like an open shut case would be somebody who caught him shooting in the act. Game over.
Well,
the kid's going to jail.
That surveillance footage should have caught him in the prone position taking that shot. Like what they're saying is that he took it basically seconds before you see him running. It's like, well, then show us the fucking 5-6 seconds beforehand. Like, it's just it all rubs me the wrong way, man.
Well, I think everybody will be paying attention when the court case comes out, and I know Cash is doing his best to reform the image of the FBI and get people to trust it, but unfortunately, due to like Freedom of Information Act, I remember reading this. It was in they put it in CNN, but it's not like CNN's trustworthy. It's more just like they covered this story that was Freedom of Information Act. There was some Muslim guy who was suicidal, and he was texting some girl, but the girl was an FBI agent, and he was suicidal and saying like, I want to kill myself. And then the FBI agent was like, no, don't do it. Do it to like a lot of people, trying to get him to commit a mass atrocity. Yep. And
they do that shit
he was
all the
like,
time.
no, I don't want to do that. So it's like, I wish, like you said, like I wish that wasn't history, like recent history. I wish they didn't do stuff like that. I'm not saying they were in on it, but when they want everyone to like fully trust them, I understand why they'd want that, but trust is a two-way street. So you have to either show more evidence or understand that people are going to question you. And I think, for somebody that I'm sure if I met Cash, I think you talked to him once, but like I'm sure we'd get along and be friends and be cool. But like he seems very spiteful. Like when people ask questions, he seems like he gets really nasty and really like, to me, it just seems a little bit unprofessional where it's like, bro, I get it, but you should also get it more than anybody else because you were running around podcasts questioning the FBI. So I understand some people are doing too much, but it's like, he's like, how dare people question this? How dare people question that? And also with this girl, like I get people are saying too much and I understand that he doesn't like it, but it's like, she's on Fox News all the time. She's like, you know what I'm saying? It would be like if I dated Tommy Lauren and I was like, hey, stop talking about Tommy Lauren. Or she's on TV every week. Exactly. Like, I don't know. It's like that. I talk about like Dinesh D'Souza because he makes podcasts and stuff. I'm not trying to pick on the guy. Right. It's just if he's
like, in the public eye and he says
dating a public figure and then mad that people are talking about a public figure. I just don't like his demeanor. I wish he would say like, hey, I understand why people don't trust it. We're going to prove your trust and keep the criticisms of me and my family above the belt. Don't go below the belt because that's fair. But it's like acting that if people are asking questions, like I don't understand the whole dynamic of it. And I'm just observing everybody acting crazy. And as you said, like there's a lot of people on not necessarily Cash's side, but on the Zionist side that are they're just becoming like really unhinged and just really like ridiculous with stuff. And I kind of get why. I think they control the institutions and even the Trump administration, but they're losing like the public perception and they're spiraling because of it. But spiraling isn't going to bring it back. So, I'm trying to be as like reasonable as I can. Like I understand why Cash would do that and I understand it. And I'm sure he's in a really tough position. But like you said, I'm not blown away by the evidence but I'll be patient and me personally, I'll wait to see what they do in the court case. Other people like yourself and others, clearly you don't want to wait to see what they have. No. You're going to say what you think now.
Because I don't trust
them. And I think you have the First Amendment right to do that. So it is what it is.
Like I said, though, if the narrative they had painted seemed logical and like coherent, I wouldn't be doing this. But it's simply not. And I think that's the reason that I have decided not to wait. Is like, okay, well, I don't think that this case is solved even. Like, I really don't. And I sure as fuck don't trust that they're going to present this evidence in court that suddenly I'm going to be like, okay, all of these other lies that they said, they all now make sense. Like, no, I don't believe he was hit with a 30-06.
What do you think they lie? What lies do you think they told?
30-06. I mean, start there. I also don't believe that Tyler Robinson worked alone. I think that he had, even if you assume that he is the shooter, the communications he was having with, his girlfriend, whatever, I don't buy that. I think that the best explanation for those text messages is that Tyler Robinson was painting an alibi for his guy friend. Right. That's the best explanation for why those come off so fraudulent and have so much detail, despite the fact that he's like gotten away with the most high-profile assassination of our lifetime. And then he's like, I'm going to lay out all of the missing pieces and evidence that you need to put me in prison forever. But simultaneously, it makes it so that my girl guy friend is exonerated entirely. It's like, that rubs me the wrong way. Or the FBI drafted it. I mean, that's possible too.
I want to build off that because 100% I agree with what you just said. If those are authentic text messages, either he's the most retarded person alive, which he's probably not. But yeah, it's basically like screwing him over, especially because they don't really have that much evidence anyway. So that the text message evidence, like you're telling me that he was smooth enough to get through all this security, dodge everybody, take the shot on a rooftop, not be seen, escape for hours, and then he just decided to throw it all away by text messaging every single thing he just did and put it in a digital text so they could find it. Because really, that's like all they really found, and So either it's a freaking made up lie that they just planted to pick their story, or like you said, he's covering for his significant other. And if they can't even admit that, where it's like, didn't they say recently that his significant other was like missing or something? Yeah. And it's like, what a sloppy, ridiculous case. I agree with that 100%. Like best case scenario was he was planting that to make it to help other people who helped them make it look like they didn't help them.
Exactly.
But that's a scandal in itself.
That's a scandal in itself.
Why does
that means
why
that
is nobody talking about that?
That means that there are other people that need to be on trial. So either it's totally fraudulent, in which case you got the wrong guy, or he worked on this with his roommate, dude, and probably others. And I think there's a distinct possibility too, given his background, that there was other people that had foreknowledge, so they should be charged as accomplices, because if they knew that he was going to do anything like this, then they should be held criminally liable. Like, I'm not saying that they should be in prison for the rest of their lives, but like, that's a crime. If you know someone's going to commit a murder and you don't say anything about it, and then they do, then you're in trouble. So like, they're all multitude of layers, and those are like the most benign variables that we don't have answers to. And then you have, as there's been reports that have been buried, you had Joe Kent, who was digging into the foreign intel angle, and then Kash Patel squashed it and had, a beef with him about that, even though he's like under DNI Tulsi Gabbard, and he's like counterterrorism, expert or whatever, or like the top guy for counterterrorism for America. Like that you should be exploring that angle. As we've just detailed before, like all of these other groups had motives too. Like lots and lots and lots of groups had motives. So we need to have a real open mind when you're pursuing this case, not a narrow focus of, we got the guy, everybody shut the fuck up and just wait 7 months for the trial. Like, no, not acceptable.
So let me ask you this. They're doing that, right? I'm not buying it. Millions of people are not buying it because of all the things you just mentioned. What do you think the solution is, in the sense of like, do you think it's citizen journalism, like people just trying to put the pieces together, like Candace
it'd be nice if it would be nice if we had a reputable federal law enforcement agency that could investigate multinational terrorism plots. But the truth is that even though we have that agency, they're completely compromised, obviously, as evidenced by guests of my show like Steve Friend, Kyle Seraph, and others that are whistleblowers against this current iteration of the FBI, and which, by the way, have not been hired back, despite the fact that they were promised that they would be. So we don't have that. So yeah, I mean, now like we are left to Candace Owens being our lead investigator on YouTube. That's just the reality. And that dude is responsible for killing, from reports I've read, dozens of American servicemen in Iraq. So look, I mean, we are ruled by, like killers. We're ruled by not just killers, but like a lot of them are pedophiles. I mean, there's like the nature of our government is so depraved that for anybody to expect us to take at face value what our government says about this is just laughable. That doesn't mean that all of the most far-fetched accusations are correct. Obviously, it doesn't mean that. It just means that like it's now left to us, the people, to figure out a lot of this stuff. And fortunately, because of the internet, because of HD cameras being so ever present, we're actually capable of doing a lot of this stuff. And we have actually made a tremendous amount of progress in opening up other potential avenues of interest that ought to be explored if there is a law enforcement agency that is interested in doing so. the sad part is I don't think that there is. I don't think that there's any interest. And I think that's why I've become increasingly angry at the TPUSA people, is that, you know, as you said, they are involved in this case in a way that, like, they probably are almost gagged. You know, they're not gagged, but like they're being told, hey, you cannot talk about this case. You can't talk about XYZ because it could jeopardize, you know, the prosecution, and don't you want justice for Charlie? Like, these people are carrying a tremendous amount of weight, especially if all, maybe it's certainly possible none of them were involved in the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and they lost their friend and their boss, right? So I have a lot of sympathy for that position, but I also simultaneously look at it and I say, if I can see all of these things, all of these errors in the narrative, why aren't you as mad as me? Why aren't you more mad than me? You know, like, those are the things that start to rub me the wrong way, because I think that's why Candace Owens has exploded in popularity, is because she is reflective of the emotion that the average American that has been studying this case feels, is that this all fucking stinks, dude. Like, this does not come across like a legitimate case at all against Tyler Robinson. And why is everybody who was allegedly best friends with Charlie Kirk all so quiet? Why are they all so quiet? And I think that's where we start to get into, like, then you have the other layer of conspiracy where you're like, or maybe they're fearful because they realize that there is something off with this, and they're like, I don't want to be next.
Yeah.
So
Here's what I would say, as somebody that understands that they probably can't really say that much if they're in on the case to some extent. They're really, like, you're saying they're being quiet, but they're kind of like not being quiet. And I think that's the issue that people have, is that they're talking so much, but they don't seem that concerned at, like, solving the mystery, because in their opinion, there is no mystery. So it's like, you know, they're everywhere. They're doing all these interviews. They're saying all this stuff. Like, Jack's tweeting every day, like it was a furry. Well, you know, like, every day it's like this, a leftist did this, a leftist did that. So it's like he's talking about it, but with no curiosity whatsoever, which maybe he knows more. Maybe he does. He believes that. I don't know. But like I said, I understand why people are just a little confused at it. And say, like, Tyler Covert or whatever his name is, he was the one who broke the story about the bullet. And it's like, that didn't come from the FBI. That didn't come from the nurses or doctors, or I don't know if they're even allowed to. That came from him. So now he kind of, like, inserts himself as the PR guy to, like, he is the guy who said that bullet did it to Charlie Kirk. And that's one of the biggest, like, pieces of the puzzle that nobody else told us. So it's kind of like he inserted himself in it. Right. The best thing I could say of, like, why people are acting a certain way is, like, I think, one, you know, I don't think that people close to the case are allowed to say and investigate as much. Like, they're probably being strong-armed by the FBI, or at least, like, working with them and not being strong-armed. Yep. But then also I do, like, and I'm not trying to be rude or say this about anybody individually, because there's some great people at Turning Point and everywhere. But I do think this industry is filled with narcissists and sociopaths. So it's like, it's coming off a little weird to everybody else, because even though maybe this wasn't how they anticipated their rise into fame and popularity, it is how they got their rise to fame and popularity. And it's not a great way to get that. But a lot of these people are, like, leftover Hollywood bros, like, you know, and like PR teams from LA. So it's like, they're just, like, way too, I'm not asking them to be sad every day, but they're hitting it in stride and, like, loving all this new attention. They're talking all the time. And like you said to me, and I'm not saying they they have to please me, because I'm not their audience anyway. But it's like, I don't care about Tyler. Like, you know, I never even knew who he was. Like, his character's not interesting to me. But I'm not saying he has to do what I want. But it's like, if you're talking every day, all the time, but it's never looking into what happened, then yeah, it's not really that appealing to me, because I'm more interested in people that are trying to, even if you do think it's Tyler, go through all the evidence, make journalistic videos about that. Like, I think that that's the most interesting angle. And they do this with a lot of different things too, is like, they're not that curious about, like, certain wars and certain narratives. It's more like what we said, and I'm not saying it's Turning Point, but, like, you know, the Trump administration, it's like, what we said about Venezuela is true. If you disagree with us, you're a terrorist. What we said about Iran's true. And there's the people that have no curiosity are rewarded by the establishment, because they're the useful idiots that just kind of take up space. So I'm not saying, like, Turning Point's in a pickle where it's like, I'm sure the feds don't want them to say this, and that. But the truth is, they're all talking so much all the time about everything, but they're not saying anything interesting at all about the assassination. And like maybe they can, but Candace Owens is the only game in town. She's the only show in town, and nobody else is even trying. And if I were to watch a Turning Point thing, I would want to hear something like adding something to the story, not just them like laughing, giggling, and getting famous off of Charlie's death. I'm not saying it's their fault. I'm not saying they shouldn't do a show, but that's how you're kind of taking it. And that's how, even for me, it's like they're saying a lot all the time, but they're just not talking about that.
They're not talking about what the audience wants to hear. I mean, simultaneously they're like, we got to carry on Charlie's legacy and we got to do this and that. And it's like, how about we get fucking justice for Charlie before we worry about carrying on his legacy? That's where I'm at with it. Yeah.
Let's say this too. And I want to hear what you have to say. Like, God forbid, obviously it didn't happen, but like, God forbid Trump actually got by crooks or whatever. Would we just start talking about how great Trump was and nobody's looking into who this freaking skinny kid is that assassinated our president and threw off the entire election and perhaps did the biggest thing since JFK? Is that the best way to honor Trump? Is just ignored what happened when they just took, like, Charlie was on that level to me. I think it's the highest profile political assassination since JFK. So I'm not asking people to believe everything that everyone's saying, but it's like, you guys are just acting like that didn't happen. And most of us feel like it's more interesting to get to the bottom of it than it is to just act like he's a hero, and we're not curious at all. Like, would they have done that if Donald Trump got taken out by crooks? No investigation whatsoever. He's a lone wolf. Let's just chalk it up as that and move on. Like, I don't think they understand how little it makes sense and how few people want that sort of entertainment versus the looking into it. That's what people want.
And then they also are not taking into consideration how fucking infuriating it is. Like, I only met Charlie a couple times and I didn't know him. I'm not claiming to be his friend by any stretch of the imagination. I was not. But I still look at him as a colleague. He was a guy that was in our world that commentated on these things on the regular. And he had a voice that mattered, and it made waves. It was newsworthy at times. And it's just like, I know a lot of people that are, Charlie Kirk-ish. A lot of people that are, have similar roles in this environment. And it's like, I just saw one of us get clapped, like this is very fucking serious. And I just feel like there is a lack of seriousness about this from everybody. Like, it's just not being dealt with or felt or discussed with the gravity that it deserves. That, like, this young man who was such an earth mover just got taken in front of 3,000 people and the rest of the world. And we're all like, well, let's make sure that we just fucking craft the narrative that he had never wavered for even 1 second of his life about his relationship and his love for Israel. Like, that's the primary concern that so many people have about this case, is just, we have to make sure that everybody is convinced that Charlie Kirk never, ever had a problem with anything with Israel, even though we have him on tape saying otherwise, and we have private text messages saying otherwise. But that's the primary thing. Not that we make sure we get justice for him and his fucking wife and his children. No. Just that his fucking legacy is painted in cement with a lie. And it's like, you guys are sickening human beings. Like, you're sick. You're gross people. And I'm not saying that means you killed him, but there's something fucking wrong with you people. Seriously.
But devil's advocate, do you think that people critical of Zionism are kind of doing the same thing? Like, even though Charlie 99% of his life was pro-Zionist,
yes,
that they're trying to make it seem like he was this fighter against Israel when he was probably one of their best Christian Gentile allies.
But I mean, a lot of that comes from ignorance, because the only thing they know about Charlie Kirk is the text messages that came out afterwards, or they saw him doing that Megyn Kelly clip. I'm reserving my anger for the people that were in the inner circle of Charlie Kirk's life that then overtly lied about the conversations that they were actually part of, dude. Josh Hammer was in that fucking group chat. That's different than Ian Carroll or anybody else coming out swinging, saying that the Zionists took him out.
Did he say before those texts came out that never happened? Is that what you're saying? Because I haven't really followed.
He said that Candace Owens was lying.
And then they came out, and then Tyler Colvert or whatever said, oh, those are the real texts.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, that's why like I said, Candace to the Zionists to me reminds me of Trump versus the left. It's like no matter how much she stumbles or messes up in any category, I'm not saying she's doing it all the time. Right. It's just like she's beating them because she like, you know, she's like stumbling in the direction of investigation, and every time she does something, they do something, and what they do is like way more dishonest or way more off the rails or way more like, remember when that picture came out, this was like weeks ago now, of him at Dairy Queen? It's like, I wonder, no one said that wasn't right. Integrity is on the line in her journalism, but no one ever said if that was a real image or not. And it's almost probably like embarrassing to the FBI, because like, if you had that image, would you put it out? Because they put out crappier image. Like, why would you put out a crappier image but not a better image? And if Candace got that before you did, like, what does that mean? So it's like no one's ever said that image wasn't right, which leads me to believe that it was right. Which is crazy to people that a YouTuber and a podcaster is doing a more like deep dive on this guy.
Well, and it's also crazy that a kid who just committed the highest profile assassination of our lifetime went to fucking DQ right after.
Has any news organization or government person like made a statement on that? None, right?
No, I mean, not that I've seen. I'll leave it open, but I don't think so.
Which is crazy, right? Because they're trying to play it like we're above Candace Owens. We don't want to talk about what she's doing in shadow investigation. But it's like, if you're above her, why did she get that, not you? You know what I'm saying? Or like, what, like that?
This is why I'm saying there's value in what she's doing. Like, this is valuable shit. It's super valuable that we know that Charlie Kirk said that in private to a bunch of people that then went out and lied for weeks right after Charlie Kirk was murdered. They're just out there on the fucking, on, you know, YouTube or wherever the fuck they're at, lying over and over and over and over again. And they're simultaneously calling Candace Owens a liar. And they're simultaneously saying that Candace and Charlie were not friends anymore, that they had a falling out and blah, blah, blah. None of it's true. It's just totally, it's like they are painting a completely inverted reality. And then simultaneously they go, well, and also it's just some random deranged leftist with a furry boyfriend at home who committed this and he acted alone and you have to shut the fuck up about it. And I'm like, well, Candace Owens, she's gotten a handful of things wrong, no doubt. But it's like, she's at least interested in the truth, for sure. I can tell that. I know that you people are liars. So who do you think I'm going to side with when it comes to, you know, where I'm getting my information from? It's like, I'm going to get more information from Candace than from people that I know are overt liars, like, obviously. Anyways,
prediction time. What do you think happens during the court case? Like, do you think they let people follow it? Do you think it's behind closed doors? What's your prediction for when that court case happens?
Well, I'll say this. If Tyler Robinson did it, then they'll let cameras in that courtroom. If Tyler Robinson didn't do it, we will not have cameras in that courtroom. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, you would assume, how does it work when they don't let cameras in the courtroom? Like, people are they're still covering it. Like, they're still writing down what's happening and releasing it to the public. But then
you have to rely on a journalist to tell you what happened. Whereas I want to be able to watch that fucking case for myself. I want to see the testimony. Like, and I've never followed a case closely like that. Like, I've always thought that the people that like watch a court case as it's aired are like lunatics. I will be watching that one. If it
I'll
happens,
be watching
I will
this one
absolutely.
too.
Yeah,
I'll watch this one harder than I've watched anyone ever, no question. Because it all comes down to this. Like, that's the moment. Do you know when it is?
Well, there were supposed to be hearings this month, and then it got pushed to like January or February. So they're already delaying. There's already been reports that came out that said that at first it was going to be televised, and now they're saying that it's not going to be. I will give Posobiec credit for this. He did say that they petitioned the court to maintain cameras in the courtroom, that Charlie lived his life in the public eye, and this case deserves to be in the public eye. So I hope that happens. I don't know, man. That if you want me to believe whatever the actual, you know, sentencing is or whatever the findings are of the court when it comes to the Tyler Robinson prosecution, if you want me to believe it, you better fucking have those cameras rolling. Because if you don't have those cameras rolling, I'm just going to assume it's a lie. That's the truth.
Maybe I shouldn't do this, but I'm just going to make a hypothetical of my head. Not that this is going to happen, but it's like, let's just say he didn't do it in reality, right? Only they know. do you think that they would ever like come to him and say like, yo, say you did it and we'll let you off the hook, or is it too high profile where like if they charged him he'd have to go to jail? Like, do you ever think there's like be a case where they like pressure him into like, you know, basically being like, oh, if you say you did it, your sentence is less. Sometimes they do that. If you try to fight it and you lose, then you're in jail for 10,000 years for the rest of your life. Like, is that?
Oh no, they're gonna put him to death. They're gonna try and hit him with capital punishment. So that would be the carrot that they would dangle. Say, look, I'm sure. Like, just imagine for a second, hypothetically, that he's innocent, but they go, you know, we have you dead to rights because you're framed, essentially. So you can fight this case against the most powerful state in human history, and you're going to be convicted, and you're going to be ultimately put to death. Or you have, 30 to life, and maybe you get out on parole when you're 70. I don't know. I mean, that's certainly a leverage point that they could use against him. But I think that, look, I just don't know. I mean, the other weird side of this is that his family is so quiet. You know, if my son was innocent, there's nothing on the planet that could stop me from going in front of the cameras every fucking day and telling the world. So
yeah, I mean, I think they think he's guilty. Didn't they? They turned him in. But also, it's one of those things too.
Those
where
reports. Hold on. Those reports have been challenged, and apparently that's not what happened. Or at least there's allegations that that's not what happened, and that in fact they knew that their son. They thought that he was not guilty, but he was basically a part of a manhunt, and they were afraid that he would be killed if he didn't turn himself in, and that's why they turned him in. So I just want to make that clarification. That's Candace's reporting. I don't know if it's true.
Yeah, it's funny because the mainstream media, for better or worse, probably for better, they're completely like dead in the water. Where like, remember back in the day, I'd go and like, even though I don't trust Fox and CNN, I'd go read their reports to see like what's being alleged and who's reporting what. Now I don't click on any articles. And like, that's kind of where you'd find that stuff is in articles. If you really like dug through and they'd reference police references and stuff. But like nobody reads articles anymore. So I haven't even kind of looked into it, but also I'll talk about it in a way that I can based on what I know. But I guess I'm at the point where I'm like, I really, for whatever reason, I really want to see this court case and, like all the speculation. Yeah. I mean, maybe something comes out that's a bombshell beforehand. Like things have come out that are bombshells, but like all eyes on that courtroom, all eyes on that court case. Like I really want to see what the FBI has, if they have more evidence than they've shown. And also I want to see what he says. Cause like you said, I've heard speculation that he said he didn't do it, and then I've heard that he said he did do it. It's like, I don't know. I need to watch and see like what he actually says in court. Cause I've never heard the kid talk except for those old videos of him at a stop sign.
I'll tell you the one thing I do know that he's talked about is that he didn't plead guilty. So you're telling me that this kid turns himself in and then pleads not guilty. Like, isn't that kind of strange too?
That's weird, if true.
No, it is true. He pled not guilty. So, there's so many layers to this that the lack of genuine curiosity from the rest of our world really has bothered me. And it to me, it has demonstrated those that like. I totally respect your position on this, by the way. Like wanting to hold off. Let's wait to see what what comes out in court. Like that's totally fair. Well, the people I've lost all respect for are the people that are like Posobiec. I saw a leftist shoot Charlie and I saw the left celebrate it. Yeah, you saw the left celebrate it, but you didn't fucking see a leftist shoot Charlie. You're lying. You don't have any evidence of that. I don't know why you're saying that. It seems like you're trying to, basically MK Ultra your audience into believing that story. But like it has demonstrated, it has shown so many of the bought and paid for commentators in this world. And for the record, that's okay. I like it. That's for people like you and I, that's a benefit. Every time someone comes out and they demonstrate that they're bought and paid for, that's good for people like us because we're not. So, like,
why do you think? Not that you have to know, but like, why do you think Jack would say it every? Like, I know he's tweeting stuff every day because I feel like it's only made more people like not agree. Like, I don't think it's working. It's working against him more than it's working for him. But he just keeps saying it every day. Like,
I'll give you the dark reason.
You think he just kind of likes to kind of play counterculture and just like troll?
I'll give you the real dark reason. I mean, he comes from a background in military intelligence in the Navy. So if this is an operation, you would want a guy like Posobiec pushing your narrative. So it could be that simple. it could also be that he genuinely believes it. And it could also be that he's got additional evidence that's been presented to him from Kash Patel or whoever else that has convinced him that this is in fact the truth. I mean, all of those are possibilities. But I'll just tell you, based off of the actual public evidence that's been presented, it comes across like it's an op. It comes across like he is painting a narrative on behalf of the state. And if you're, allegedly a drain the swamp MAGA guy, well, then you're not. You're just not that. So that's how I feel about Benny Johnson. That's how I feel about Posobiec and others. I just think that they have shown their true colors, that these people are compromised. That's my opinion.
I don't watch their show, so I've never watched Benny Johnson with Jack. I don't watch his show, so I don't know what exactly he's saying. I've seen the tweets, and I just see like it's getting ratioed by like Ian Carroll, and people are, just like saying the exact opposite of what he's saying, and it seems like that's the more popular side. So I don't, I guess it's hard to ask what someone else is doing by it, because I've seen a lot of people do a lot of stuff and say a lot of stuff that I wouldn't necessarily say. So it's hard to tell why they're doing it or what their motives are. So I just at this point, I kind of have my opinions about like who's who and what they're doing. And then at that point, it's almost like Groundhog Day. Very rarely does somebody like change their tune or something, or, I would say in the last month or two, I've seen Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Polls. He seems like he's kind of woken up to this. Dude, but like,
that guy goes hard in the paint now. It's awesome.
He's going really hard. But it's like, besides him, there's no shifts going on. Everybody's the same old character. And that's how, and I'm not knocking anybody, but like, that's how I see Twitter too. It's like Groundhog Day of like the same people arguing about the same stuff every day. And I'm not holier than thou. I don't have the solution. I'm not acting like I'm better than it, but I'm just like, I don't know. I guess I just stopped interacting as much unless I'm really inspired to, because it's like literally every day. It's like Jack tweets, I saw a leftist do this, then Ian responds to him, and then you get mad. It's like Jack's doing it every day. So I'm like, I know. Why else would you post the same thing like every day unless you're purposely trying to like argue or I don't know.
I gave you some angles as to why he might be doing that, but here we gotta wrap here soon. So I gotta get your opinion on the rise of Nick Fuentes. I'm just curious what your thoughts are. I mean, I'll just give you just a brief primer. Like, I have ended up in a defending Nick Fuentes position that I really didn't expect myself to be in, but I think it's like at my core, I'm a rebel, and I love rebels, and I love like seeing someone who at 17 years old basically was blacklisted and just buried and then treated like a terrorist and no fly and banks closed and everything else and just abused and then labeled the most hateful person on the planet, and then to see them conquer all of that is like, it's inspiring to me, and I'm just being honest about that. He and I have plenty of disagreements when it comes to politics. There's no doubt about that, but overall, I think this is good. I think it's healthy. I think that this demonstrates that the gatekeepers are failing, that the arbiters of what are acceptable opinions are basically in shambles, and I think that's a good thing. So that's my opening salvo. What are your thoughts?
I mean, his history checks out as far as there's a tweet of Ben Shapiro calling him an anti-Semite in 2016 because he was talking about dual loyalty. Most people, including myself, like that wasn't even on my radar. Like sometimes people will say, oh, you were before Nick on certain topics. And it's like, maybe some, but not that topic. I had no idea about that in 2016. I didn't even think about race or religion at all. I was literally just thinking about Trump and Bernie. And then the same thing happened to me in 2019. They basically used Nick as you're him and you're a groyper just because I was an independent journalist, not like bowing down to the system. And I'm like, listen, I don't care I don't know who these kids are. I don't know if they like Nick or not. I don't really care. I'm listening to their question, and I'm listening to like Charlie and Dan Crenshaw's answer. And I'm like, the question is valid and the answer sucks. So basically I got blacklisted for not condemning them in 2019, but I'm cool with a lot of people, and they've even though they don't maybe never talk to me and we're not friends, they respect me because I've never lied about anybody. I've never condemned. Like if Dinesh says something I disagree with, I'm not condemning Dinesh. I'm not his daddy. You know what I'm saying? That's what he said. Here's what I think. Like, I just talk like a normal person. I'm not like a gatekeeper. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely, for me, it's the Overton window shifting. And as much as people want to say, oh, well, we want everybody to talk, not just Nick. That's not true. I'm living proof that that's not true. I got blacklisted in the same exact way. I didn't make the jokes Nick's made. And now Nick is going mainstream on social media. And I think the people who hate him are just hoping that people care about jokes that he said 5 years ago or crude things that he said. And it's like, that's about as likely as people giving a shit about Trump grabbing him by the pussy. Like, you're trying to like ruin this guy's whole career because of some messed up things he said. And it just doesn't, it's not working to the general public. So for me, I was personally glad to see Tucker interview Nick because it's just paradigm shifting. And it's like some, two people on the right that didn't like each other now having a conversation. I have no issues with it whatsoever. People are spiraling over it. So with Nick, it's like, I've never met him. I don't know what his true intentions are. Everybody's got an opinion of him. But I judge him based on what he says and what he does. And I think that he's extremely smart, extremely talented. And, while everybody has character flaws and he's got some as well and things that I don't agree with, I think, like they try, I don't know, like you said, it's like a story of redemption. They tried to blacklist this guy. They tried to say he could never get anywhere. And now they're all talking to him because the rules have changed and he brings in a lot of views. So it's just like a fascinating thing. And for me, I guess I'll say this too. The people on the mainstream right, the neocons, the Zionists, even Democrats, they play all this word games where they say, you're bad because of this word and I'm better. It's like, but what if you started wars that killed millions of people? What if you've gutted America? What if you've destroyed the nation for the youth? What if you locked the country down? What if you funneled socialist money to pharmaceuticals? You're better than him because he said a bad word? No, you're a piece of shit too.
Short time we have, I would say this. I did say we should kill all Hamas terrorists, and I stand by that. And what I laughed at was a fake picture that was sent to me where people tried to claim that Israel was killing babies, but what they sent me was a 10-year-old photograph of a baby being killed in Syria by Muslims. The point was, if this was real, you wouldn't have to generate fake pictures. But what I would say is, even if all of the things that he claims I did were true, to say that is worse than someone who said the Holocaust didn't happen, that women should be raped, that makes the most horrific says the most horrific things about black people. When you will equate that and you'll say that's not that bad, we've got a real problem. I've said Tucker Carlson is the most dangerous anti-Semite in America, and I stand by that.
And I would say you're a bigger piece of shit. So it's like the people that are horrible, they've always like they use certain words, anti-Semite, Nazi, this, that, to be like, they're so bad and I'm so good because I use this word against them. And it's like, it's not the case. Like, you might be just as bad, if not worse. So it's funny to see all of those people spiraling because some of these people are horrible just because they have little words that they call everybody. And then they're justifying the slaughter of hundreds of thousands of like 10-year-olds. It's like, you're a sicko. So yeah, it's like, why would I be like, if Tucker interviews Ben Shapiro, should I say, oh, I don't like Ben's opinions and he sold the bad? No, fucking just talk to people and have a conversation. But it's all the bitches and the weasels that are freaking out about it. It's like anyone else just moves on with their life. And it's like, oh, yeah. I've heard Nick for a year. I mean, he's been on Twitter for a long time, and his show, it's like, he's been a big player that they didn't want to let in, and now he's in. And now he's just another one of these big players where you can choose to like him or not like him. But I don't think he should have.
I think it's even better than that. I think it's like, he's not in. He is the game. Like they had their game board, and he's just like, we're not playing that game anymore. Like, I'm playing my own fucking game. I've got my own private platform that I fucking crush and do hundreds of thousands of viewers every night, probably millions now. And it's like, he didn't wait to be let back in. He just fucking created his own path. It's really inspirational. And I'm for one, in awe of it. To do that from basically 18 until you're 27 is just like, it's funny. It's funny that he and Charlie Kirk hated each other so much, because I see so many similarities between the two. Charlie created basically a grassroots empire. Granted, he may have done it with a lot of state backing. I don't know. But then Fuentes, in his own regard, did kind of the same thing. He created his own empire of influence amongst the young, and he did it without any help, without any backers, without any funding, without a bank account or fucking ability to fly. I mean, that's just like, if you can't respect that, I don't think you fucking like understand what it is to be an American, honestly. Like that is so quintessentially American to be like, I'm going to break everything until I get to where I want to go. Like, that's so awesome. Sorry for the, I'm going to be accused of glossing him, but it's inspirational. It's fucking beautiful.
I mean, I think a lot of people were banking on constant censorship and constant gatekeeping. And the reality is that the public moved away from that. I think things shifted faster than people realize. But when you have a country that wars have been lied about, like neighborhoods are falling apart, they've let in tens of millions of illegals, like that nobody's given a crap. Republicans are fake opposition. I think they've underestimated like how little the youth really gives a crap. And I would say this as somebody that grew up in the 90s, like I had all sorts of friends on the bus. I had an Indian, I'm not just saying this, I'm just thinking about my childhood. I had an Indian friend. I had a Jewish friend. My one friend was like low-key cripple. You know what I'm saying? Like we all liked each other, but we all made jokes, but no one ever even knew what the word racist was. Like we just kept it moving. And it was like a great time. Like it was just real, like even though we were kids, like alpha man, you just figure it out. I think the kids are going back to that. You could say retard again. Like people, like it's like, oh, this is so bad. Why is this so bad? Now because neocons can't start another war and keep everyone out. It's like, even if he is mean or whatever, it's just like, I don't know. And then they get mad. They're like, he said this about women and this and that. And I was like, you're talking to the wrong person, because to me, the Republican Party is like a feminist party. I think they're like too liberal, So it's like, I don't know. It's like, you want me to spend all my time mad at this kid, but not Ted Cruz and not like Dan Crenshaw. It's just not going to happen. And it never was. And like, you were saying like, you thought it was inspiring. For me, they tried to blacklist me in the same way, even though I had nothing to do with them. So it's like, they want me to believe that they just hate him, but they did the same thing to me. So it's like, fuck you guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't give a fuck about you guys. You do the same fucking thing to me, even though I was nice. I never made jokes, this and that. You blacklisted me. You smeared my name. You wrote articles about me. The Zionists published all this stuff. It's like, fuck you guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're crying about this stuff. The thing they want people to believe is they're only going to do it to Nick, and they're only going to do it to Alex Jones, and they're only going to do it to Tucker, but not you. It's not the truth. It doesn't matter how nice you are. Look at Charlie Kirk. He was the most pro-Israel person I've ever seen in my life, and they still called him an anti-Semite. They still called him Hamas. They don't give a fuck, and everyone needs to wake up to that. So it's like if Tucker talks to Nick, who cares?
Yeah. I met Megyn Kelly a couple nights ago, and I told her that. I said, look, if you get the Tucker Carlson treatment next, you got 10 million people behind you. Don't kneel. You don't have to kneel. Don't ever kneel. And she said, thank you. And she was very sincere about it. And I was like, I'm just like, the fucking media environment has shifted. And I don't think that the old guard gets it yet. Like, you're not going to get ahead by trying to appeal to power. The power is the people now. Like that's, right. And I know that sounds like communism, but you know what I mean? It's like,
Clint's a communist. Sorry.
the populist energy is super real. And if you're not vibing with it, then just get the fuck out of the game, dude. Like it's over for you. So I think that's where we're at. Like we're going to have basically like Fox News and CNN and all these old institutions, they're all meaningless. So now you have the influencer class, you have the Benny Johnsons and Posobics of the world and Charlie Kirks of the world, which were basically the new Fox News, where they get to funnel their messaging through those talking heads. Like that's what they were doing. And now you have the rebellion. You have the independents that are eating all of these people's lunch in listenership, like across the board. And I just think it's over for these people. So that's why I'm nervous about censorship. I'm nervous about us all being deplatformed. But
I don't know if it's over for them, because they control a huge portion of the establishment. Like CBS was just bought by Ellison's family. Like it's not over for them. They own most things, but they don't control.
I'm saying in terms of like meaningful conversation. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, here's and not that they're going to listen to me because they don't ever, but it's like, it should be treated almost like, I'm not saying European politics, but like how they have their little segments and they make deals together. Like this is my thought with like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, people like Dave Smith. you have to just stop calling everybody anti-Semitic all the time, listen to what they're saying, and strike deals with them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I talked to someone at Turning Point. He has no institutional power, but he just knew I was right about this forever. And he was like, oh shit, everybody's on your side now. Let me like ask you what's going on. And I'm like, bro, I'm not the ringleader. I'm just a fucking honest American who's like 6 years ahead. But he's like asking me like, what can we do? This and that. Cause he was getting like nervous that everybody was like overrunning their side. And I'm like, bro, compromise. I'm not an unreasonable person. I said, for me, I'm not a politician. I have no say. No one gives a fuck what I think. But if I actually had the power to make a deal for this side, get these IHRA international speech laws out of the United States of America. They have no place here. They're unconstitutional. They don't help. It's anti-American. If they started working with the Marjories and the Masseys, they're shockingly reasonable. And then the more Americans get out of it, the less they give a shit about Israel. They only care because it's central to everything all the time. And we're not it's not helping us at all. So it's like, that's my thought is like, you can't just run. You can't just run.
Do what we say.
You can't just run Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker out. And you can't they're just escalating, be like Nazi, Hamas. Like it's like actually crazy where it's like literally chill the fuck out. You don't like Tucker. He doesn't like you. Why don't you guys figure out something that you do? Like maybe you can come together and get crime off the streets in Florida. You know what I'm saying? Because you both agree with that. Like there needs to be coalitions and people make deals. I'm not mad at Zionists all the time. I don't care that they like Israel. I don't care that they want to do this. But I'm not sitting freaking out all the time, calling them names like they've done to me for 6 years. They've tried to run me out of town for 6 years, lie about my name. Like it's not working. Clearly, it's not working. So I think you're right. That's the future is people realizing hey, we have different ideas. We're on the same side. Let's strike deals and try to do things that are mutually beneficial. I don't think they're going to do that personally.
I agree with everything you're saying. And I agree with that last line too, but you don't think they're going to do that. And I'll tell you why, because their primary mission in life is the defense of Israel. That's the truth. And so all of these compromises that you're coming up with, which are very reasonable and I would get on board with, obviously, and it basically probably 90% of Americans would get on board with, it'll never happen because the people that actually control the strings of power that's not an acceptable compromise because the priority has to be the defense of Israel. And for whatever reason, they have a very sick ideology that tells them that you have to not talk negatively about Israel. We have to actually deplatform. We can't actually have this conversation. Free speech is actually not acceptable. Open debate is not acceptable. We got to deplatform and all.
Why can't they defend Israel without passing international speech laws into America?
Because their actions are indefensible.
Why can't they defend Israel without doing nothing for America? You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying you're wrong because the whole reason, even when I saw An0maly, I was like, I don't trust him because he cried at the wall. And they're like, oh, someone was like, oh, you're just being hateful. No, it's pattern recognition that for some reason, I don't know why, because I think you can support Israel and want to defend them and be a good American politician. I literally think it's possible. I just really haven't found it. DeSantis is the closest thing to it. I think he does a pretty solid job.
No,
but
exactly.
Besides him as governor, it's for some reason, 99% of these people, they can't double task. It's in order to help Israel, they need to just throw everything else out the window. And I'm like, why are you doing this? I don't understand it.
They're compromised. That's my honest opinion is that once you've gotten into those positions of power off of, APAC or whatever Zionist dollars, you're no longer in control at all. So there is no interest in remedying crime or poverty or whatever actually ails the American people. And it's just, this is the whole problem with foreign influence. Anyways, we've gone way too long, man. I only wanted to keep you for an hour. So
it's all good.
I really, really appreciate the conversation, and I hope people liked it. Please do hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment down below. We said a lot of controversial stuff, so feel free to argue with me in the comments. An0maly, tell people where they can follow you, man.
Twitter at Legendary Energy, Instagram at Dream Rare.
Awesome. At Liberty Lockpod on X if you want to support my work. Keep spreading the word around, folks. I really appreciate it. I can't believe the numbers that we're doing on Spotify. One of my episodes did over 50,000 views on Spotify, which is fucking crazy. And it was a solo episode, so I don't know what's happening over there. The people are talking, people are helping.
Subscribe to Liberty Lockdown. Great podcast. Clint is tight.